I definitely don't mean the Blackhawks.
Okay, so what I was asking before was, do we have to vote on both Small Lane and Main Street to continue, or have we already continued them both?
Hold on a second. Let me look at my agenda. We've already continued them both.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. 1 second. Hello, everyone. This is Chuck Tirone, the Reading Conservation Administrator, pursuant to state legislation superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, section 38, section 20 relating to the COVID-19 emergency. This October 11th, 2023 public meeting of the Reading Conservation Commission shall be physically closed to the public for tonight's meeting. The meeting shall be instead held virtually using Zoom. Please note that this meeting was being recorded. We'll do that now.
Recording in progress.
And that all materials are available at this link, which I provide in the chat. Let's see if I can do that here. There you go. Martha Moore, the Conservation Chair, will facilitate this meeting. Please note that there will be a public comment period for each hearing. Each vote during this meeting will be conducted by roll call. We'll begin with a roll call attendance. Martha, can you please review tonight's agenda and take attendance?
Okay. We have 2 hearings that will be continued that we will not do anything on tonight. We will be discussing 451 Pearl Street and 62 Range Road. And then we will go on to Meadowbrook access easement if there's any update on that, and old new business. And we have 1 set of minutes to approve. And we need to admit Walter Talbot from the waiting room.
Sure. And then just a note that 30 Collins will not be at tonight's meeting. And they will be at our next meeting. And Keolis is here to give a presentation about that work they had done by the railroad tracks. So I'll let Walter in, and I guess we can proceed.
Okay. When I call your name, please answer so we can tell you can hear and be heard. Bill.
Bill McCann, member present.
Andrew.
Andrew Driven, member present.
Brian.
Brian Bowe, Vice Chair, present.
Tony.
Tony Rotalakis, member, present.
And Walter.
Walter Talbot, member, present.
And Martha Moore, Chair, present. That makes 5 of us on the commission, no, 6 of us on the commission here tonight. Okay. All right, and we're starting the meeting at 7:12 p.m.
First item on the agenda is 451 Pearl Street.
Okay. Can you let them in? And I will read the little blurb.
Yes.
451 Pearl Street. Continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Frank Federa pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to raise an existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling and driveway. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and intermittent stream. The application and plans can be viewed during the regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year, Assessor's Map 46, Lot 15, DEP file number 270-0776. Welcome, Giovanni.
Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm Giovanni Federa, project engineer. I can share the screen. Let's do that. As Martha mentioned, the proposed project will be raising the existing single family on site, and we'll be proposing a new single family house with the driveway, stormwater retention system, new shed in the rear. But as part of the project, previously we were proposing to remove 2 trees, but the revisions include now removing 7 healthy trees and 1 dead tree in the back. The 7 trees would be the 5 in the front right here and 2 on the side right there, the 1 dead one in the back. And we will be adding new plantings, 5 new trees. They will be red maples and 4 new shrubs. Those would be the names swamp azalea shrub. So with the 4 shrubs and 5 trees, that would total 7 new plantings. And so the other changes, we added a construction stockpile area on the site, so that would be in the rear. We did add a straw wattle barrier, and that will be along right here. It's about 20 feet away, and so you can just kind of see that line right there. So previously we did have that right on the property line. We shifted it further, and so it kind of gives that buffer. We did also add a fence along the back at the south and the east side of the property. Other changes include updating the impervious area. So we did not include the deck and the porch previously, but we did include that now. And the updated impervious areas are right here. So existing is 3,900 and some change, and proposed is 4,000 and some change. So we are increasing the impervious area a little bit, but we are also including the stormwater infiltration. So that would account for the added impervious. As previously mentioned at the previous meeting, the site soils, as determined by the NRCS soil maps online, it is soil types A, which are well drained. And that's the majority of the changes. I know we added the 12-inch diameter mulch sock rather than this, I think it was the silt sock or whatever that was. So I know that was a request to change that to a mulch sock. We did make that change. But there is also a breakdown of the tree species, shrub species, and these would be the sizes. These are the ones that are readily available from this nursery. So they would be, it would be, it's anticipated for these to be planted this fall. So we'd like to make that clear. But I think Frank, the applicant, is present, so if he has anything to add, but I think that's all I have to add right now. And so happy to discuss it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone on the commission with questions or comments? Bill?
Thanks. I'm just wondering about the math here on the tree and shrub schedule. So I see on the site map here, planting of new shrubs, 3 to 4 feet tall. But what we have on our replacement schedule is if it's 3 feet in height or greater, it's 3 for each tree removed. If it's 5 to 6 feet in height or greater, it's 2 for each tree removed. So I'm wondering about how you settled on this replacement ratio.
I considered 2 shrubs equaling 2 trees. So we look over here, yeah, these would be the sizes right there. So 3 to 4 feet in height. So it's my understanding that 2 shrubs are considered 1 tree, and that's how we got to that. So 4 shrubs would be equivalent to 2 trees. And that's my understanding. So that's how we got to that.
And so perhaps this is a question for Chuck. I don't understand how that squares with the replacement tree and shrub policy. These are 3 to 4 feet tall. And if the shrub is 3 feet, but less than 5 feet, it's 3 for each tree removed, not 2. Is that not something the commission usually does? Again, I'm only 7 months in, but I just thought I'd check.
No, and I'm glad you checked. I didn't direct Giovanni to the regulations where he would see that schedule and what's going on. So yeah, Giovanni, I often just say generally, 1 tree equals 2 shrubs, but there is a size that you need to meet also.
Right, if the rhododendron had the potential to reach 5 to 6 feet, you'd be okay. It's just it says for whatever reason on the site map 3 to 4, and that's why I'm drawing attention to the schedule. That's my comment. Thanks.
Okay.
Chuck, can I say something?
Sure thing.
Frank Federa, the applicant. These shrubs are readily available. I think, once I already reserved them, and I can email him tomorrow morning to make sure that we meet the certain height requirements. I know the caliper was an issue, and I secured those trees, but I don't see any issues of getting the shrubs in that required height range. They do have plenty of them in stock.
Thank you.
So are you saying that if they're available, you'll meet the criteria on our schedule? If they're not, the 5, I have to pull it out, but the 5 feet in height?
Yep. So it's 2 for each tree removed if it'll reach 5 to 6 feet in height or greater. It's 3 for each tree removed if it's not going to get up to 5 feet.
So is that question that I have is that the mature growth, or is that the planting size?
It doesn't make that reference. I'm assuming it's what's the potential.
Okay.
Right. And
Okay,
if you're told by the vendor this is the potential, I assume it would then meet the schedule. It's just on the site plan, for whatever reason, it says 3 to 4 feet tall.
And we were referencing that right there. Sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
From my understanding, it sounds like this is the size at planting.
Okay.
So to get the mature size, Google there quick. Guess they can grow typically between 3 to 5 feet. That's what I'm seeing online. So it can get up to 5 feet. 2.5 meters tall and broad, which that would equate to about 8 feet.
Yeah.
So this is just Googling.
Yep.
But
And
it sounds like
if you buy from a vendor, right, you buy, say, a tree for planting, that they let you know what's the potential height. And I imagine same for shrubs. So that's easily checked into. That could be another way to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, Frank, you could just, when you call, get back to me with, just verify that we're going to meet that requirement.
Yep, I'll get on that first thing. On the anticipate issues with that.
Okay, are we all set on shrub height? Okay, Tony,
Yep, thanks. I just wanted to thank the applicant for looking into the native maple trees and for showing them on the plan. Thank you.
okay.
Welcome.
Anybody else on the commission with questions or comments? Brian,
Yeah, so is it a fair assumption that the path to and from the stockpile is going to be on the north side of the new structure?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I figured, but I wanted to ask and get on the record. Lonnie, last question I have has to do with the zone of natural vegetation. So, per your site plan drawings here, you have the 25-foot buffer from the ZNV, and you have your trees and shrubs in that area.
Hmm.
So what we have been asking for is in that area that it not be mowed. I think on one of your notes on the landscaping, you talked about mowing. So could you explain what you intended to mow per that that note?
Frank, maybe you want to take this one?
What note, what number on the
So-
notes? I'm sorry.
I can't see it.
These are generic landscaping notes, so
Yeah,
What number is it?
I'm trying to find it.
yeah, that makes two of us.
Oh, mowing and mulching, number 6.
Yes.
Mhm. Hmm.
No, it was just, I think this is
I
just a
think-
generic,
Yeah,
no, and I don't intend to really do anything in that area. Just gonna let it.
Okay, so it'd be good if you take that note off, just so there's no confusion, and it would be good. What we would like you to do is to not mow in there. And given that, I'll leave it at that, and back to you, Martha.
okay, Walter,
Looking up, it looks like the rhododendron appropriate is called a swamp plant. Only grows to be 5 foot tall, 12 inches wide. Or 12, I'm sorry, it's wide, it's 12 feet wide, but only 5 foot tall, if that enters into the equation.
if we're concerned about that, perhaps they would be willing to plant 2 more swamp azaleas, one on either end of the row of the maple trees. And that would satisfy Bill's concern about the 3-to-1 ratio. What do you think about that, Frank? Yeah, like right there and one on the other end.
I don't have any objection to that. If that makes this commission happy. I mean, I think the price is relatively reasonable, and if it means getting 2 more, I'm okay with it.
Would that satisfy your concerns, Bill?
It would. I mean, if they're getting to 5 feet, they technically fall into that 2 per tree, but you know, on the commission, we're always happy to see more that would be great if the applicant is willing.
Okay, if that solves that problem, it seems like a relatively easy fix. I had one question, which is about the fence. Can you describe what the fence is going to be like?
It was going to be something similar to the adjacent fence to the south, which is your standard 6 foot high vinyl fence with 4-inch gap on the bottom. And it's just to basically shelter the neighbor and, you know, just to protect anyone from any kids or anything from getting into that intermittent stream. And that was the intent, was to shelter.
Okay,
have
so it's
some-
solid fence. It's not a fence with vertical posts and gaps in between or anything.
Correct. It's a solid private, what they call a privacy fence.
Okay, privacy fence with a 4-inch gap so that squirrels and chipmunks and things can go underneath.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that was my only question. Anybody else with questions or concerns from the commission? Okay, Chuck, any questions from you?
Sure. Frank, I think we had this conversation before, but the first thing you were going to do is install that fence. Is that correct? Before you do
Yeah,
any
so-
site work?
So what I would like to do is, it just doesn't make any sense to put the sock, 12-inch mulch sock, and then get back to that southern area when things are done. So I'm hoping, what if I could get on this right away, the critical path of the sequence would be to get the fence up first, get the plantings in, and then put the 12-inch sock and get these plants established now in the fall, because it's an ideal time according to the vendor. And that way I don't have to go back in that area and just let them kind of settle in and grow.
Okay, yeah, and so the reason why I asked that question is because that sequencing works out well with the straw wattle that I think you've noted on the plan. But if you don't get the plants and you're unable to put them in and they're going to happen this spring, I would like the 12-inch mulch sock.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I just wanted to get from Giovanni the total impervious increase. I think you flipped the screen too quickly for me to see.
That increase looks like it's 125 for my quick math. Yeah, 125 square feet.
Okay, that's all I had for questions.
Okay, Walter.
I may have missed this, but now that we have that strip of shrub and trees, what's going to be the ground cover?
That will be grass. It'll be grassed.
Do we want grass that's going to be fertilized so close to the stream?
I think,
So yeah, you could restrict. So usually you can fertilize for the first year, and then after that it's restricted, but it's up to the commission. And so there's not much phosphorus in fertilizer anymore. So I'm not saying not do it, but you could also put a slow release fertilizer restriction or an organic fertilizer in that area. But usually plants and trees, you're fertilizing within that first year and then no other time. Some of the trees do come with warnings about fertilizing them at all. I know we're talking about the ground cover, but once it's established, you could restrict that. It's just up to the commission.
Brian?
Yeah, so we already agreed that it's not gonna be mowed, so I'm not sure why you would want it to be grass that would then just grow as tall as it's gonna grow. I would have thought you would have wanted some other ground cover that's closer to the ground. So are you sure you want it to be grass? If you
We're just
can't,
keeping what's there right now.
right, but it's right now it's being mowed and you're not gonna mow it in the future. So do you want grass just growing as long as it grows?
Sure, yeah. Yes.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to ask that because not everybody likes the look of that as opposed to something different closer to the ground, but okay, again, bottom line is as long as it's not mowed, I'm fine with it being grass, I guess.
Yeah, I have, I could add to that. If, I think the commission should have another condition saying that, you know, if you're gonna maintain this, it's kind of like a hybrid, you know, vegetation, planting area, but it's also natural at the same time also. So you might consider or an allowance to mow that every 2 years to keep out, you know, any kind of woody vegetation that may come in that's undesirable.
That's a good point. Additionally, what we've done recently, where bushes were planted with grass growing around it, was we allowed some clearing around the base of the shrub to allow it to grow better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to keep the vegetation from overwhelming the shrub.
Exactly.
But I like Chuck's suggestion of allowing once every 2-year mowing to keep the buckthorn and bittersweet and things like that from growing up where the grasses are currently growing.
Yep, that makes sense to me too.
Okay. Are there any members of the general public who are here who wanted to make comments on this project? You can go to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and choose the raise hand function inside that reactions button, and we can call on you. Seeing none. Are we ready to come up with a answer for this project?
Giovanni, can you take the screen sharing down?
Yep.
So I think we're first looking for a motion to close the hearing, and there is somebody in the waiting room.
Yeah. Joining now.
Are we ready for a motion to close?
I'm ready for a motion to close.
Brian, make a motion to close the hearing on 451 Pearl Street.
Bill McCann, I'll second the motion. Bill McCann's in favor.
Andrew Dribbett in favor.
Rainbow in favor.
Walter Talbot in favor.
Tony?
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay. And then we need a motion on this. Hold on. It is a notice of intent. So we need a motion to approve the notice of intent. Do we want to make a list of the things before we do that? Yes, Chuck says yes. Okay, what's our list?
So we have remove note number 6, add 2 more swamp azaleas from making that number from 4 to 6. And
We had the
if the straw wattle, I was gonna, the straw wattle, if the planting doesn't get in and you don't finish off that section in the 25-foot ZNV, it will be a mulch sock. And then the mowing, so you're going to leave ground cover around the 25 ZNV. You'll be allowed to mow it every 2 years. And then, but you can cut around each tree. I'm going to say the width of like a weed whacker, you know, like 16 inches. So you would go around the tree just so that any of that grass doesn't grow up and start choking out or taking over where the plants are. And that can happen on a regular mowing basis until they're established. So those are the conditions I have. If there's any other.
Oh,
So
we
just-
said construction entrance at the north side of the property for bringing stuff into the stockpile. And is there going to be any sort of soil stockpile area, or is any dug soil going to be taken off the property immediately?
So the stockpile area that's shown on the plan represents the area of stockpiling, both for soils that are being brought in, like crushed stone, backfill material. So everything's going to be up in that northern section where that circle is.
Okay, so both soil and construction material stockpile will be in that same location.
Well,
Okay.
construction material might be in that northern driveway that's there right now, but I think that circle represents more of a stockpile of soils and stone and stuff.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add to the list, or any comments or questions before we vote on a motion to issue a notice of intent, to approve a notice of intent? Are we good to go, Chuck?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
This is Bill McCants. I'd like to make a motion to accept with conditions the notice of intent for 451 Pearl Street.
This is Andrew. I'll second that.
Bill McCants in favor?
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Walter Talbot in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. We'll see you.
Okay. Our next hearing is 62 Range Road. Can you let people in while I read about it? Amended order of conditions for 62 Range Road. Open the public hearing on an amended order of conditions filed by Robert Ward, Reading Rifle and Revolver Club, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes to install a sewer and water connection to the existing municipal sewer system in Simon's Way. A 6-inch lateral and hydrant will be installed adjacent to the west side of the addition. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year, Assessor's Map 46, Lot 15, DEP file number 270-0761. Okay, Mark, welcome.
Good evening. For the record, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering here on behalf of the Reading Rifle and Revolver Club. This morning, you may recall, we had a very informative site walk showing the area. And I think at this time, I'd like to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, last November, the commission issued an order of conditions for constructing an addition on the existing clubhouse. Since that time, it was determined by the fire department that a fire suppression service was going to be needed. The building is currently on a small water supply well, which won't be adequate to provide enough water for the fire suppression system. So we have to propose a new water connection to the municipal system. In addition, the existing septic system can't be updated to meet current regulations. So we have to tie in the existing sewer connection to the existing sewer system out in Simon's Way. This morning at our site walk, we walked down in this area, showing where the water line was going to be connecting to the building, and also where approximately where the existing cesspool is. We believe it's a cesspool. What we're going to do is intercept that line, put in a new lift station, and then run a new force main all the way out to Simon's Way. Additionally, we'll be running a lateral out to the front of the building and installing a new hydrant. This is the only area of the site that where the work is not going to be contained within a paved surface. It's an existing gravel access road. It's already been disturbed, and our goal is to do this construction and utility installation without cutting down any trees, and maybe some selective pruning of some of the invasive species there, but no major removal of vegetation. Let's go back to the other page. As we were just over in this side of the site, so as we're heading to the west, we'll have the force main and the 8-inch water main. By code, they have to be 10 feet apart or encased in concrete where they cross. So we'll be coming across the existing paved parking lot and then down an existing paved access road. There are wetlands on each side in very close proximity to the road. We will be providing erosion control barriers in those locations, in all locations where we are close to the wetlands. And I'll touch on that in a minute because I did raise a question to the commission this morning. We'll be going on opposite sides of the roadway for the water and the sewer on the south side, water on the north side. Again, maintaining the 10-foot separation and also maintaining all work within the existing paved way. Again, the gate to the club is right around this location. So as we come around the corner, there's another wetland that's been flagged to the south of the existing roadway. So at this point, we're going to tap into the existing 8-inch water main that's behind the Burbank Ice Arena. Once we make that connection, that'll end all of the work for the water main. And again, we're going to try and find the place to cross where it's going to have the least impact of the trees. We'd like to keep any hardwood trees that we can, and if anything, we'd have to take down, some of the pine trees that may be reaching their maturity anyway. The force main will continue along the south side of the road. Again, within the pavement, and connect into the sewer manhole that's out in Simon's Way. And that's it for the scope of the work. As we mentioned at the site, the force main is a 1 1/4-inch diameter polyethylene tubing. It comes in rolls of about 100 to 200 feet. It would require a fairly narrow trench. Just throw the, some bedding material on the bottom and then roll the tubing into the trench and backfill it. The trench is expected to be backfilled at the end of every day, with the exception of the very end of the work. There'll be maybe a 10-foot long section that'll be covered with steel plates. All of the trench casting materials will be stockpiled within the roadway itself. Unless there's some fairly open area that's outside the buffer zone, adjacent to the road, so we can maintain some access to the site. As down in this location, what we'll be doing is stockpiling anything from the trench in the roadway itself because of the wetland across the street. So wherever they're in the 100-foot buffer zone, we'll be stockpiling it within the roadway itself. So as far as erosion controls, we would like to use either the silt socks, which is the mulch socks, or straw wattles, whichever the commission prefers. I think it's some of the work that's been out there so far. They've been using the mulch socks because the amount of time that's going that work is being in place. This work is going to be fairly quick. However, we're not sure how quick it's going to be repaved. Once all of the work is done, we are going to be repaving it. we're not sure if we're gonna be able to start the work this fall or in the winter. If the work gets done in the winter, then it's likely that the trenches will be opened over the winter. I think ideally we'd like to start it in the spring so we could just come back in and pave over the trenches as soon as all the work is done. So I don't think that schedule has been established yet, given the condition that the building addition is in. I don't see a need to do it right away, but I guess it all depends on how that construction progresses as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to the commission and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there members of the commission with questions or comments? Bill.
Yeah, this question is more for the commission perhaps than the applicant. I unfortunately was not able to be with you for the onsite, and so I'm thinking perhaps this has been addressed in some way. But it's unclear to me why this qualifies as an amended order. As this commission knows, we recently dealt with this with another project, and we were directed to the 1995 state policy on amended orders. And we first have to make a determination whether the requested change is great enough to warrant the filing of a new notice of intent, or whether it is of a relatively minor nature and can be considered as an amendment. It's not clear to me. I wasn't on site with you all, but just having reviewed the material, having heard about it here, that this is of a relatively minor nature. So just putting that out there, not expecting an answer right now necessarily, but I wanted to make that comment. Thanks.
Brian.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to point out is in the gravel easement area, when we were there, remember we saw several dead or dying trees, and discussion was had about whether to remove them or not. And I believe the idea was that you are going to remove them, in which case I'd like you to remark those on the plans, so the plans should be accurate.
Okay.
Okay. And Bill, speaking to your question, I did think of that. I felt it was minor enough because it was, for the most part, under the roadway, and then there was a part of it that was under a poorly paved area, and there was a slight piece that near the septic tank when it went across an area which is already previously disturbed as well. So I think it's okay. That's just my opinion. Having said that, back to you, Martha.
Tony.
Thank you. Yeah, I would also agree with what Brian said with respect to the modification being quite minor for the reasons that he gave. Also, I wanted to note that during the site visit, we did not observe any catch basins or stormwater catch basins within the project area itself. Really, the only ones that are nearby are in the ice rink parking lot. So when we're looking at measures to control runoff and siltation and sedimentation, I don't think it's going to be a concern in terms of stormwater leaving from the site.
So Tony, you're saying you don't think we need to put silt sock things inside the catch basins?
Right.
Okay. Any other comments? Tony? Yes, Tony's good.
I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right, Chuck?
You're muted, Chuck.
So I did want to let the commission know that I was also concerned about DEP on this one. And I had an opportunity to talk to Elizabeth Sabujian, I think I have her name right, who was the one that called me when we were doing the Millet Songs in Morgan. And I gave her my reasoning for why I thought this was an amended order of conditions. And first and foremost was something that the applicant should have been aware of. And if they were, it would have been part of the project, because the increase in the size of the project and pervious area, or however it's calculated, requires this work to happen. And when I took the notes on Millet, she specifically said that one was supposed to be a notice of intent because it was an increase to the disturbed resource area. And since this is work in the roadway, typically like utility work, cut and cover, that for those two reasons, it would be okay. There was a concern about the narrative that was sent to DEP, and we had to discuss the 150 feet of water main that was in the unpaved area. They wanted to make sure that that wasn't anywhere near a wetland. So with that covered, that was the reason why we were going to move forward. She agreed, and the rest of the conversation was about any additional work over at Millet, so it had nothing to do with this project. So I'm not saying that we have their absolute blessing, but I did cover that base, and if they come back and say, no, you're not covered, I'm not going to be surprised. But I feel like that's what I heard on the telephone, and there was no ambiguity about what she chose for words on that. She felt like at the end of the day, I felt like the conversation was more about Millet than it was about this project. So there was really not much concern here.
Yeah, Chuck, just real quick, thank you for being so proactive and actually reaching out to DEP on this.
Okay, Chuck, do you have any other comments?
The only comment I did want to make sure, just to ensure, but I heard it in the when Mark went over the project, that it is, except for that 150 feet, all roadway work. And so that's all I wanted to make sure. The rest of my comments have to do with conditions that I think the commission will have anyways, but if they don't, I made my list.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that 150 feet of unpaved. Actually, Chuck, for most of it, there's this old granular kind of pavement on top of it. It's not nice and smooth like the road itself, but there's just picture some old asphalt parking lot broken up kind of thing. So it is more or less paved, although not as nicely as a roadway. But I think the point you made still stands. So all set.
Okay. I'd like to make a couple of comments. Near the place on this map, maybe where it says sewage lift station, or a little bit below that, somewhere in that area, there is a puddle of hardened concrete that somebody must have dumped out of a wheelbarrow and left there in the woods. I would love to see that picked up and taken away when you're doing your construction, and leave it in a little better shape than it currently is. It was clearly visible to the right-hand side as we walked, sort of near that dashed line. Yeah, right in that area.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that was like a makeshift cover for the existing cesspool.
Ah,
So that was that's coming out anyway, but if that's not part of it, we'll make sure to remove that as well.
okay. Yeah, I could believe that that's a cover for a cesspool. You got it. Okay, and we already talked about the couple of dead trees that are hung on some of the other trees there that I think Chuck usually allows removal of dead trees. Do we need to put that as a condition in this amended order?
That they can remove the dead trees?
Yes.
So Brian has or is going to ask for a condition to mark the trees that will be removed. He didn't say alive or dead. So
Okay.
that also may not allow the Conservation Commission to close, but that's one of the outstanding conditions that I see coming up.
Okay. And the other concern we had was where they need to connect the water main, taking sort of a right turn and going through the fence and meeting the existing 8-inch water main on the far side of the fence. That fence is pretty well lined with trees. And so I think it would be good at least to have Chuck come out and consult with them in the field as to exactly where they're going to go through and what trees or saplings they might need to remove to put that line in. I don't know whether we need to have the whole commission come out on another site visit or whether we can authorize Chuck to make that judgment call. Anybody object to having Chuck be the consulting on where the trees come out to cut through that fence?
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Chuck, are you okay with taking on that?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right, those were all my comments. Anybody else? Andrew.
Yeah, just thanks. Nothing specific to add. I just wanted to mention that there are some talks, I'm sure the rifle range is aware of, about potential uses of this area of land, and it's good to know that there will be new pipes being laid over there. So I just wanted to put that out on the table. It doesn't affect anything, I don't think.
Okay.
That's
Are
it.
there any members of the general public that have questions or comments? If you do, you can use the reactions function at the bottom of your screen and click on the raise hand button. Okay. Chuck, do you have any other questions or conditions that we need to include?
So yeah, I do have some conditions, but nothing I need to talk to the applicant about. So was holding that off until when you close.
Okay.
I can let you know now. I don't know how you want to do it. Do you want me to go over the conditions now that I have, or you want to close, have me go over the conditions and then issue?
I think we can close and then you can go over the conditions. I think the one thing that would be preventing us from closing is whether we need them to mark the trees on the map that they would be taking down in the area that's visible on the screen now, or whether Chuck can consult with them if they need to take any trees down. Brian, what do you want to do about that question?
The trees that we all noticed were pretty clearly dead, or as you pointed out, some hanging on other trees. So as long as they stick to the intuitively obvious trees to remove, then I think we can leave that in Chuck's hands.
Okay.
You know, if they mark the plan and then just submit it from there.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Mark?
If I need to mark the trees on the plan and submit a revised plan, does that prohibit the commission from closing the hearing this evening, or could they add a condition saying the plan shall be revised and resubmitted?
I think we could close tonight, but Chuck, do you have a better answer to that?
Yeah, so I think the tree question would be, yeah, actually, I think it could be handled that way. If Mark, how many trees do you expect?
think
I mean,
there
you have
were-
to survey in all these trees.
I think there were 3 dead trees. As far as the trees up where the water cuts underneath the fence, that's something that's gonna have to be determined in the field. I don't think there weren't any dead trees that we needed to remove up there, but there were some live trees that may be impacted. Some of them are small saplings and some of them, it depends on where the crossing occurs, which is at your direction at this point. One thing I'd like to offer too, though, is if it's okay with the commission, I did notice that I don't show any erosion controls on the plan. And I think it would be a good idea that the plan be amended to show the erosion controls with the detail of what the commission would like to see for those erosion controls. That way there's no confusion with the contractor. I think at that point, then, maybe it would be acceptable to just continue the hearing until a new plan has been received by the commission. But I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, I thought you had some time because you did mention that you were thinking about doing this project in the spring. And so there may not be any rush. The
Right,
erosion control would only be in the areas where you're in the 100-foot buffer zone or in the buffer zone.
right.
Okay, so it sounds like we should continue this, and I think that's a good idea to get the erosion control marked on the plan. And the question, Chuck, was silt, mulch sock, or straw wattle? Do you have a strong opinion one way or the other?
Yeah, well, tonight I think it's going to be a longer project. If it was cut and cover in the spring, straw wattle. But if you don't know how long the material or the trenches will be open for till you repave, I'm going to say mulch sock, so 12-inch mulch sock. And there's been some people have bought some mulch sock, and the what it's wrapped in has eroded very quickly within a couple of months. It happened on 2 projects, so when you get that, we'll just make sure that it's 8 or a year, before it starts decaying. That would probably help out a lot.
Does that make sense, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll just specify the mulch socks.
Okay.
12-inch mulch sock. I don't know when they'll put it in, but I don't think there's a huge cost difference. So we'll just go with the mulch sock. I think it's a better product. I think it'll be more protective of the wetlands.
So having said this, Mark, how much time do you think you need to update your plans?
I could probably have them submitted sometime next week.
So do you want to continue just one meeting?
Sure. When would that be? The 25th?
Yeah.
Yes.
And when would you need everything by then?
A week
18th?
before then. Yeah.
A week ahead, so you need them by the 18th, next Wednesday.
Yeah, the end of day of the 18th.
Okay. Yep, that's not a problem.
All right. So before we have a motion to continue, Chuck, did you want to list your conditions so we can get them on the record before we move on tonight?
Sure. Condition number 1, start in the spring to just keep the time that this project will take to a minimum. Crossing an area of least impact field approval by conservation administrator. No stockpiling in the buffer zone. Mark the trees to be removed, dead and alive. remove the concrete near the sewage lift cover if it's not makeshift cover to the cesspool. And that's what I have.
Okay. When you say cross in area of least impact, you mean cross the fence?
Sure, I could say cross the area by the skating rink to connect to the existing water main in an area of least impact, and that will be field approved.
Okay.
Chuck, do you want to meet out there sometime before I submit the revised plan, and then I can just show the exact location on the plan too?
Sure, I can do that.
And that way we could identify which trees need to be removed.
Mm-hmm. That would be fine.
Okay. All right. Can we have a motion to continue this hearing to October 25th?
This is Brian. I make a motion to continue the hearing on 62 Range Road to October 25th.
This is Tony. I second that.
Bill McKenzie in favor?
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Walter Talbot in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. That's unanimous. Okay. Thank you very much, Mark.
Have a good night.
All right. Okay, that takes care of our two hearings. Meadowbrook access easement. Anything on that, Chuck?
No, there's nothing on that, but could I make a comment about we do have Keolis here, and we just have some other things that the commission needs to deal with. Is there any way we can suspend the agenda and move Keolis up higher on the list? The rest is really just discussion.
You read my mind, Chuck.
Okay.
Okay, before we get to old new business, can we invite Keolis in to talk to us about whatever it is? And who is Doyle? Is that somebody with Keolis as well?
I think so. Okay, you both can turn on your videos and introduce yourselves. Aline.
Unmute.
Sure.
I think oh no, I gotta start my video. Sorry, there we go. Whoa, there we go. Hi. That's pretty bright.
Hi. Yeah, we can hear you. It's all working.
Good. All right. So I know Elaine.
Your full name?
Sorry, I don't know why it just says Doyle either. I just got a new computer, so I have to reset up my Zoom to have my full name. My name is William Doyle. I'm a civil engineer with C1.0 Engineering. I know Elaine Baker is here. I know she was expecting that we wouldn't get pulled forward, so she may not be right at her computer right now and notice that we're on. But I can speak. So my name is Bill Doyle. I work as a sub-consultant to Keolis and the environmental group, specifically working on culverts and environmental compliance in wetland areas and such. And I understand this is a little different than typically what we do. It's more of a reaction to some situation that happened out there, is in some clearing and some dredging, if you will. We've got a quick, little 4 or 5 slide presentation just to kind of tee it up as to kind of what happened out there and kind of some of the background, as I understand it, and some of the stuff that they've done now, and kind of open it up to for you guys to offer some input.
Okay, William, hold on. Okay, yeah, we're just letting Aline in from the waiting room.
Yeah. Oh, okay. She was okay. You coming in?
Okay, I think she's in now.
I see her there. Oh no, she's coming in as a.
There she is.
There she is. Hey, Lynn.
Sorry, I had you all on my phone, and it just wouldn't transition to be allowing me to turn my video on. So anyway, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Hey, welcome. We just got the introduction from William, and he's about to show us a few slides.
Yes. please.
Okay. So if I can share screen, we'll do that.
Chuck, does he have screen share permission?
I think so.
Yes, he does. There we go.
Okay. You're sharing screen. Okay, so let me just get organized here because you guys are kind of in front of everything on me here. So all right. Okay, so let me just back up to the first slide. So this is kind of a picture soon after the disturbance that happened out there. So as I understand it, the crews were out there. There was a kind of a flooding issue, and the crews came in and did some clearing, and encroached on some wetland areas and cleared out some of the swale areas. And this is kind of a picture of soon after that work had happened. So just to kind of orient everybody and for the public and for all y'all who haven't been out there, the main line here, generally it goes east to west. West outbound is on the left side of the page. East inbound is on the right side of the page, just because as we'll talk about those directions in a sec. So what we understand happened out here is we have New Crossing Road, which basically accesses some of the commercial areas out on this side of the train tracks, and some of the municipal yard is out here as well. And that there's a culvert that goes underneath this roadway that basically gets stormwater and drainage from the kind of the west side or the outbound side, and gets it through and across and generally to the wetlands on the east side. I have a cross section in a second, we'll see, but the culvert, there is this 10-inch culvert that goes underneath the New Crossing Road, that's actually part of New Crossing Road. It's not part of one of the Keolis culverts that I'm typically working on with Keolis. Most of our culverts go underneath the tracks, and that's usually what we're permitting. This is a similar situation, but it's not a culvert that we own or control. In this area, there are 3 tracks, and we'll see that in future slides. It's a 93-foot right-of-way. The swale we're talking about and the wetland areas generally in this area, and yeah, the wetland areas. So looking at a cross section of the train tracks there, like I said, there's kind of a triple track situation that goes on here, elevated ballast. As we come down to the swale area and then the wetland and kind of like a retention basin type situation over here next to New Crossing Road and kind of adjacent to the roadway and the municipal yard area. Generally this swale, and we'll see some pictures in a second, this slope as it comes off of the train tracks and off of the ballast, and as it comes out, this is all actually still in the right of way. But in this area here, we have a bit of a retaining wall that was constructed some hundreds of years ago to kind of contain and hold the tracks in place and basically create the bedding and the limits of the train tracks. Then we have a drainage channel, and this eventually drains eastbound towards that 10-inch culvert that goes on a New Crossing Road. This outline, as you see here, this generally represents the right-of-way. It's about a 93-foot right-of-way. It's 93 feet 4-inch right-of-way, and that swale area and all of this slope area and the wall that you'll see some pictures of are all kind of within the railroad right-of-way. And this area here, we see kind of a large tree, and this is just representative. It's not actually, trees and stuff. There are trees out there, but that doesn't represent any specific tree. Generally, this area is the area we're talking about of disturbance from the wall. Some of this slope up here, this is kind of all ballast and constructed structural slope for the containment of the rail bed. But most of the disturbed area is down in this area here. What you see generally, the center picture and the rightmost picture, good representative examples of what we're looking at here. You see the train tracks up on the right-hand side of both of these pictures. It slopes down this general rock wall. It's more structured formed wall as you get further west. This is kind of east. At the toe of this picture here is where that 10-inch culvert is that goes underneath the roadway. So as you can see, this generally slopes down as the structure of the rail bed hits that wall. Then it goes down to this swale where the work was performed, and then that extends out into some disturbance in the wetland. The center picture is kind of a better cross section of that. You can see the steeper wall section here. The first picture, going in reverse order here, is actually looking back the other way. This is from back in the background of these two rightmost pictures, standing way back there, looking eastbound towards what you can't see is the culvert where my pointer is down here, that 10-inch culvert. So there's still some water kind of hung up there. What you see here in this section is the disturbance in the the upstream side, if you will, of mostly cutting out the vegetation and some of the vegetation management that they actually normally do along the tracks, which extends still within their right of way mostly, but captures this whole the whole swale area, swale system. That is these previous pictures. That's how it was when I first got the call. And we heard from all you guys and the concerns from the commission. Since then, soon after those pictures were taken, we went out there and did some of our standard mitigation as far as just stabilizing. We didn't want to go out and repair and move any dirt around without having this discussion first, but we did want to make sure we stabilized all of the low-lying wet areas and all the areas that were kind of in the resource area. Again, this on the right-hand side of this picture here is the train track. This is kind of a ballasted slope, if you will. It's got a lot of dirt and debris mixed in with it, but this generally is the structural ballast and everything of the train tracks. And again, you can kind of see that wall as it goes down along here. What you see in this ballasted area or in the structural train track area, you start to see the telephone poles. Those are the wires and everything, the telecommunications for the train tracks. There are some underground wires also that end up in this section, if you remember that section before. And I want to go quick, so I won't go back and forth and have that discussion. We can talk about that in questions. So what we did out here, our typical response and erosion control stabilization is straw mulch, and we have a couple of different mixes that we use. We have a wetland mix, and then we have an upland mix. In this situation, we put down, it's basically a pretty standard Mass DEP approved, wetland mix, and then straw mulch, at the base. And then at the top of the slope, on top of the wall, the plan is to basically continue with the ballast slope and the continuation of the train tracks. But again, we didn't want to do any mass excavation or anything before we had this discussion. So that's kind of what it looked like out there, what our response up to this point has been. One of the things we dug into as the environmental group is how did we get to this point? And one of the things that, as we're continually working against new federal regulations, keep the tracks clear, keep trees, keep everything running smoothly. There's two graphics here. You see up the first, the leftmost graphic is our previous vegetation management maps. And the area we're talking about generally is this area here. You can see the kind of blue shaded, but the triple track. This is the new crossing road happens right here. So this is generally the area we're talking about. These were our previous maps that were created, some years ago of our vegetation management. And the blue areas represent limited vegetation management, whether it be spraying or cutting, but the idea that area was limited. We have since, before this occurred, we had updated those maps. And as you can see in the previous maps, we didn't have any wetland areas identified here. Through our work with the commission, your commission, and identifying the green areas, these shapes here, basically from your guys' GIS information and from discussions we've had with the commission and our new vegetation management plan, which we update every so often, these areas were identified as wet areas. What we discovered through this process is that the crews basically were only reacting to the blue that they were used to reacting to, which basically says limited, vegetation management there, and they have that defined. But since these maps were created, no one ever really kind of got a clear indication. The crews didn't get a clear indication of what the green blobs meant. They were purely reacting to what they normally could do in the blue areas. What we're looking to do now, and not just here, but because of this and throughout all of our vegetation management maps, as we update them in the next 5-year kind of approval go around, again for your community and others, is we're going to be adding some type of nomenclature or other situation that has we're thinking it's basically going to be an addition of the blue line, and it'll be essentially like a red line, as you see here, which is going to identify, okay, there's a wetland here. Hold, stop. The reason that we're doing the blue is here is because we have this limitation, and it means X, Y, and Z. It means, we're not going to excavate here. We're not going to do this, that, or the other until we go through a notice of intent or approval process with the local conservation commission. So basically, I just wanted to give a little history of how we get here and how we put these stop gaps in place, and the fact that this wetland area wasn't defined in our previous maps, but now it was, and there was just a slight disconnect. And I don't want to understate the urgency that we've been having the past basically this summer with all the kind of flashy rainstorms we've been having, and I can show you some horror stories and link and confirm that of some of the other washouts that we've had where we've lost complete things. So there is a heightened fear of not opening up culverts and letting water flow through, as we've lost track sections, because of flooding situations. So we did get calls from the neighbors and people in the neighborhood on this one to say, hey, our parking lot, our buildings are flooding. Keolis, you've got to clean out your culverts, so that the pressure of the rain, the pressure of the neighbors asking, and not having this clear definition of what this particular area was, the guys went out there, cleared out the 10-inch culvert that goes under New Crossing Road, and they did what they would do to clear out a culvert in an emergency situation. And that's kind of how we went. So hopefully, as we get this new system of these red lines in these critical areas, me, Elaine, and the environmental group will get these calls when these happen, and we'll be able to kind of jump in and avoid this from happening more in the future. But basically, that's it. I want to be quicker than that, but we just wanted to throw out kind of what happened as we understand it, what we've done to this point to stabilize it. Again, we haven't gone in and done any excavation to move any dirt, because we didn't want to dig ourselves in a bigger hole, no pun intended. But we stabilized, and hopefully we're going to put some things in place for future here and everywhere else on the system. And we just want to get your guys' input as to what we can do for next steps. This last picture is a good picture. You saw it early in the presentation. It shows the culvert in the bottom here, this 10-inch culvert. This is kind of the bottleneck. In my opinion, it's a massively undersized culvert for what the stream wants to be here. Again, this is off our property. It's a municipal culvert for the New Crossing Road. We're willing to do what it takes with you guys, help work with you guys to see, how we can improve that situation so we can have a more easily maintained system, and then, figure out how that wants to move forward in the future. So we're here to kind of, see how we did so far, and let you know what's going on, and take any suggestions moving forward, and how to stabilize it better, and how we can work with you guys to figure this all out.
Thank you. That was good. It was nice to see the pictures with the straw mulch on the edges. Anybody from the commission with questions or comments?
I'll go back to leave it there for a sec.
Yeah. Brian.
Yeah. So did your crew actually manage to clear the culvert?
Yes. Yeah, we did. The day the initial work happened, we cleared the culvert, and then we got the calls, and we said, okay, don't do anything else. But you can see the culvert here is cleared out.
So you cleared the culvert even though you didn't own it?
Yeah, that's kind of why we're here.
Well, why wouldn't that have been a red flag, at least, that you needed to talk to somebody in Reading, since you were clearing out a culvert that Reading owned?
We didn't know. The crews didn't know at that time. The crews, that's kind of what the whole idea of putting the red in these areas is to signify to the crew, hey, this is, their vegetation management plan basically says, clear cut the trim back, whatever the vegetation in this area. along the tracks within the right of way, and that's normally what they would do. And definitely
Okay,
the
but
line was
I'm
there, and
talking
they
about
knew.
I'm talking about the culvert.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they cleared a culvert that they didn't own. And you know, whether or not the maps are up to date, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But that culvert has apparently always been Reading. So why wasn't that already indicated on the maps they had? Why would they think they could go work on that culvert without coordinating with Reading?
That's the thing, that's where the kind of the mistake lies, and what it basically, and you know, no excuses, but as the story played out, what basically happened is they were getting pressure from on site, from the people from the neighborhood, as we're getting the flashy storms. Hey, this is backing up. This is backing up. They had the equipment there because they were doing their other vegetation management. So they said, "Oh, it's an emergency situation." They didn't want to be in the situation of,
Okay, so
causing a worse thing.
Question. So this map they were using, what was the date on that map?
It's the one that
So-
we looked at together. It's
So that
2020.
was 2014.
Elaine, I have it up now. It's the older Keolis map.
Yeah, 2020.
2020. So does that say that it was approved in 2020, approved by this commission in 2020?
Correct.
I'd like to know when in 2020, because that's when I was joining. I don't remember approving this.
So that was for vegetation management. It didn't really include clearing of culverts. So what happened is the crews were out there doing their normal reaction to the vegetation management plan, and the neighbor or the abutters there said, "Hey,
Okay.
you've got to clear that out."
Okay,
And
so
the crews didn't pause and ask us first.
okay, so you said that you update the VMP from time to time, or some other wiggle words like that. So how often do you update a VMP?
It gets updated every 5 years, according to, you know, the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture.
Okay, and when is that supposed to be updated next?
Next, I can look it up. I think we're 2 years in, so in 3 years' time. But what we would offer to do is to use our updated map for you all, and you know, go through the MDR process when that applies.
Okay, so you've told us for the most part what happened. I really haven't heard any good whys it happened. So it sounds like the map wasn't accurate. Maybe that's one why. It sounds like the crew made the mistake of working on the culvert they didn't own without coordinating with the town. You also said that there's trees and what have you that are in the right of way for the most part, which implies that they're not in the right of way to some part. Again, why wasn't there coordination?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the last one.
So during your presentation, you had a number of unclear terms. And one of them, when you were talking about the vegetation in the right of way, and you said, for the most part, which implies to me that some of it that was addressed was not in the right of way. So again, is that a mistake by the crew?
Okay, so here's the cross section of the right of way generally as it looks, and obviously if we move a foot downstream or a foot upstream, this cross section will change to some degree. So it's not going to be, this doesn't look perfectly like this. We get that. This is the swale that they were working on cleaning. That's within right of way. What had happened here is, if we look at, you know, that's generally, if we were to draw that right of way line and we don't have it surveyed in here, you know, that would be generally right here. There was some work that happened as they scooped and moved things outside of that right of way, best we can tell. We haven't surveyed that line yet. But generally, oops, can you see my cursor? Generally, you know, so that's what I was referring to as some of the work kind of encroached out of the right of way.
So when he dug out that trench, that channel, he dumped the material that he pulled out onto the far side of the channel away from the tracks. And that was
Yeah,
not,
some of the spoils, yeah, and you can see it a little bit better in the center picture here. Some of the spoils went outside.
right.
And again, I don't want to say this was an emergency situation, but there was this flooding situation that was occurring here. So it wasn't.
I understand the flooding situation, but we're going to get a lot of rain in the future, so that can't be the excuse. Okay, so in this picture, so we didn't go down the track because we didn't have the 8 hours of safety training and such. But in looking down it, it appeared that work went quite a distance. How far down did that go?
So what you see on the leftmost picture here, this is about where, so there was not any land excavation occurring down this far. This is all just, the normal tree vegetation management, cutting out the large woody trees and everything. So there wasn't any excavation, I don't think, that occurred down this far. And I'll go back to the map and kind of show where that was.
So did they actually cut any trees, or was it pruning? What did they do?
Pruning, there's probably nothing greater than 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I mean, I'm sure there was 1 or 2 in there, but generally you can see, the size of the, the stuff that was cut here.
Okay.
And that's down beyond, if you look at the center photo, there's kind of this large tree here, that the work on the leftmost photo is on the back side of that tree there. That tree there in the center is basically the front side of this tree you see here in this left photo. So that's just kind of behind here. And this area here, I'm standing in the parking lot generally of that commercial property that had called about the flooding.
Yeah, so I'm about to pass this back to the others in the commission, but it seems to me that we're still lacking on a good understanding of the whys this happened, which means we really can't address to make sure it doesn't happen again, because we don't know why it happened. And when we were there was conversation about, well, maybe there needs to be some training of the crews and what have you. As I said then, I'm a big believer in education, not in that situation. I mean, that foreman had been, 32 years, 35 years, something like that. I can't imagine he needs more training in his job. So there's something else missing. There's some reason why this happened, and we have to get to that. But
No,
now
I don't. So Brian, unfortunately, I don't know if there is much of a reason, unless I throw my colleague under the bus, where basically, the foreman's getting phone calls from Ed Sartell, the property owner. And after the fourth or fifth phone call, he was in the area and decided to let me get this guy off my back and let me just clear the culvert. And I think, there's I think a lack of sensitivity here. I had a child who just
Brian, you recognize the name Ed Sartell, right? We did
Yep.
You know who we're talking about, right?
I do.
Okay. He's
all
just
right.
Ed's been on our list for dumping before, and he's well known in town. And I guess if his business or something was happening on his property, I know that he would be the type of guy that would call. He's like a leader. He's like someone who would make a point of being persistent.
But again, I understand that a business owner in the area called persistently. That still is not an acceptable why. If somebody's a squeaky wheel, that doesn't mean work gets done improperly because he's a squeaky wheel.
I hear you, Brian. If I may add, right, this is at a time where July and August, we have a super large amount of rain. right? This is like a week before the hurricane is coming. We're getting a lot of phone calls for, this is not the only culvert that is blocked, right? So it's just, it is working through a to-do list and trying to get things done. And, unfortunately, we need to improve where, we're in a sensitive area and we're working alongside a sensitive area. And so that is what this situation has really brought to light is no matter the urgency, there are moments where it's a pause, call the environmental department, get the green light to go ahead, and then continue. But at the same time, so that's basically what we're working on implementing is, guys, sometimes you just got to pause, connect with the environmental department, we'll do our due diligence, and then continue.
So that is my last question. So I understand that you had asked them to stop, or maybe even told them to stop. I'm not sure how that was phrased, but he didn't. Does that imply that you need to change some protocols, something in your own company? So
no, they listened. They listened to the environmental department. They stopped the work. I did tell them to, to clear what was on the top side. As in remove what like we cannot leave brushes and like work equipment and materials along the right of way because it could blow onto the tracks, right? So that's like standard protocol. You got to clean up your work area. So that there was a hard no. Do not, do not proceed with any equipment work except for clearing. I guess clearing is not the right word, but cleaning up,
removing the stockpiled brush, removing the stockpiled brush that was on, adjacent to the tracks. And that was my message as soon as we got the call was to stop. So the why here is we made a mistake. I think more importantly, the solution is, and I work with these guys, in the office. I'm on my conservation commission for 20 years. The train tracks go through my town as well. And we're constantly, not butting heads, but working on this situation as well. The solution here has to be a simple one, and it has to be knowing how they operate out in the field. It needs to be that red line on the drawing, because there's a lot of things that basically say, this is what you can do, this is what we're going to do, this is our process for vegetation management, this is our process for culvert, and this is all the ways we can do. This is kind of, I don't want to say a first, but it's kind of a big step to say, here's a big red line. When we're in this area, you need to like, okay, if anything other than what we normally do here, you need to call, because there's something here. There's something of urgency here. So the why is we made a mistake. And I think the solution is kind of twofold. How do we prevent it from happening again? And then how do we patch up this area to get it back to how it naturally needs to operate and function as a wetland area? And then I think that the third is more importantly is, we've got a 10-inch culvert here that's massively undersized and probably compromised in that it's a plastic or something that's we can clear out the front of it, but we're not even sure what's inside it. It may be plugged down there. There may be a beaver or something living down there. We don't know. And that's the length that we did not go. We really just cleared out in front of it. So we're here to, we've presented what we think will stop and prevent this, not just here in Reading, but other towns and communities, if we can implement, this kind of red line policy, if you will. And then work with you guys to figure out how to, make sure nobody's getting phone calls from the abutter to because of flooding issues.
On that note, Martha, I'll pass it back to you and the rest of the commission.
Okay. And I just do want to fess up here that I am the one who drove across the culvert in New Crossing Road and noticed the trucks out there digging, and contacted Chuck and said, Chuck, do we have a permit for this? I don't remember hearing anything about it. And that's what started this whole thing happening was I just happened to have business at the DPW that day. And I was concerned that it went from looking heavily vegetated on the slope to being all cut down and bare dirt and right next to what appeared to be a wetland to me. And so I asked that question, and I have now learned that the railroad tracks have these ditches along the sides that frequently have water in them as part of how you manage the railroad tracks. To keep the railroad tracks dry, you drain the water down into these ditches. So I have learned something. But I think, if I had contacted Chuck and he had said, oh yeah, Keolis told me they were going to be working out there today, that would have been the end of that conversation. So reaching out and letting the conservation administrator know what you're planning to do, I think is a important first step.
Agreed.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Tony.
Thanks for the presentation. There's been a lot of discussion about the undersize, or at least the potential undersizing of the culvert. Is there a plan in the works now to approach the town for a way to resolve that problem in order to keep the ditch from perpetually flooding in the future?
We don't have. I don't know if Elaine's still on. I'm not aware of an actual RFP or any discussion moving forward on that. We were hoping that this would be kind of a direction on how that would happen. Again, it's the New Crossing Road isn't ours, and hence the culvert isn't ours. And I don't mean to sound like I'm shirking responsibility on it. We want to work and get it done right. And certainly, it will, any work to do this will be kind of adjacent to and or within the right of way as we get through excavation and stuff. So we want to see, how this joint effort happens and how we can, work with you all. But we haven't approached that. We just wanted to kind of get you guys on board, just understanding what we did out here and make sure we're stabilized and the wetland system is in good shape. And certainly we'd welcome, how to start that process. I know it's not your guys' responsibility to initiate, town contracts to fix drainage, but you'll definitely have involvement in this, however it plays out, because it is, adjacent to wetland systems. But the short answer is no, we haven't had a dialogue to how to fix the 10-inch culvert yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else with questions from the commission or from Chuck?
Just want to make sure the commission's had a chance. Yeah, I did notice when you had some of these pictures up, I don't know if you can flip through them again, but
Yeah.
I think one shows the wetland area, and I was just wondering if that side casting prevents. So you've elevated the bank, and I'm just wondering if that was part of something you could look into. And I know it might be outside your easement, but let's say that bank wasn't so high and some of this runoff could spill into that wetland behind it instead of being kept in the channel. Could that be part of whatever solution we come up with, or is there some reason why you wouldn't want to do that? And I think the side casting is probably what built it up in the first place.
Yeah, and again, that was, when I first got the call, Aline and I kind of looked at it and I was like,
oh no, I don't mean just one time.
Just stabilize it right now, which is kind of the reaction we had. Both Aline and I looked at it and said, yeah, we're probably got to, get that casting out of there. But we told them to get the machines out of there and don't do any more digging. So I think looking at that, it makes a lot of sense.
So hang on, the casting is that the soil that?
Right. All that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did look into that, right, in the very rainy week, into could we remove it and sort of like pull it out of the wetland area. It's very wet and very soggy.
Yeah, oh,
So,
yeah, it's- yeah.
So it would be, you know, I imagine we'd be doing it by hand and foot and buckets and shovels, and it
So
would
the reason
really,
is not to clean it up. It's the reason is to allow it some of the water to spill into that area
oh, okay,
to take away some of the flooding. So we're just kind of
okay,
creating, an
passage, yeah,
opportunity to
okay,
take some of the strain off of what's happening out there. And I think that maybe over the years that this built up, and
Mm.
now we have this cork, and if that could be looked at, also, and
Yeah, what do
with
you
whatever the
suggest?
repair
Yeah.
is.
So Chuck, are you thinking a small gap in this barrier, or are
I'm
you
not
removing?
designing it. No, I'm just saying I noticed that there is something preventing the water to spill in an area that usually soaks up water like a sponge, and maybe it should be looked at.
Can it be looked at when the culvert gets upgraded?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, the culvert, I did have nothing positive with the engineering department, but they know that culvert's an issue too. It's
Okay.
not a great situation. It's like, I don't know, 5 feet below the surface, maybe more.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah, so right next to the train, and that's just not, hey, somebody really good with a backhoe. That's like a lot of permits, a lot of back and forth, a lot of design, a lot of drawings. I mean, we have to work with, maybe even some classes that people have to take to work that close to the train track.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that maybe I could mention to our MVP coordinator, and if we could get because this is a flooding issue, and that's what the MVP grant's all about. And maybe we could think about, maybe getting some design on this culvert and get a grant for that. But I can tell you, I don't think it's high on the list at this point with our engineering department. But that doesn't mean with some conversation and reaching out that wouldn't be elevated.
Yeah.
I mean, I
yeah.
totally see
Like,
what you're doing.
would a letter of support from us be helpful?
Let me talk to Ryan tomorrow, actually, or in the next couple of days. I'm not sure if he's in tomorrow or not, and then get back to you about what could happen or what the roadblocks are going forward. So, but what you could do is what I was mentioning about, damming up that wetland, and maybe that could be opened up. I mean, certainly if there's 2 feet up there, I mean, that water looks pretty high. It looks like it's right at the top, and it could be spilling into that area. But I'll do my part on the rest of that conversation. I can't imagine why a 10-inch culvert was put in that location, but
It's plastic too, or it's something that's doesn't look structurally strong. But Elaine, to the point of kind of, I think what Chuck is talking about is, is reestablishing or creating a hydraulic connection between that standing water we see and hopefully a lower lying area that's beyond that straw. And I think Ms. Moore might have mentioned, maybe there's a gap that can happen there, and we could probably do that in a very non-invasive way with, some pitchforks and some shovels and a couple of guys down there with some of the knee-high boots on. Could probably do it, with minimal disturbance to the area. And that'll at least give a hydraulic connection in there that would alleviate some of the flooding until we get, a solution on that 10-inch culvert.
And Chuck, would they need to get a permit from the Conservation Commission to do a hydraulic connection like that? Would that need to come before us, or at least before you?
So I think we know this project pretty well. It seems to me that maybe with just reaching out and letting us know the scope of the project and when they'll do it, would be enough for me, and maybe if the commission agrees with that, they could move quicker on this
Yeah, I mean, it's a
project than
remove.
otherwise.
It seems like it's a removal of the spoils that may have kind of built up over years. So really, it's a I don't want to say it's a swale maintenance project.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird thing, but it kind of feels like it's an O&M
Something
type
maintenance project. Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else with comments or questions? Including anyone here from the general public, you can use your reactions function at the bottom of the screen and push the raise hand button.
Sure. Can you take down the?
Oh, you want me to stop sharing? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I can-
Yeah. Can you take that down?
Sorry about that.
Just it's easier to see.
Yeah.
People.
Okay, I don't see anybody with questions or comments. I see one thing in the chat. What's somebody chatting? Oh, that's Chuck's link. Okay. All right. Are we set on this? Is there any votes needed? I don't think so. I think this was just a conversation, right?
Right. Yeah. We're just here for a discussion. I would say the next steps is we have a plan. We want to review the plan. They're up on the website. If anyone wants to add some wetlands to that track, I'll get it back to Elaine and have a conversation about the culvert. And hopefully we'll get back in touch with Keolis, and they'll tell us next whenever. They'll be just kind of taking the bite out of that bank that has been built up over the years.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay. Well, I think I want to first thanks for taking us out of order. That was very helpful for me anyway. Yeah, I think Chuck, we can just work back and forth with Elaine and you loop me in anything we want as far as connecting with the DPW and what they need from us or how we can help out with that. And then I'll just leave it up to Elaine because she's kind of the point person.
Yeah, sure. I will start the conversation with the DPW, and I don't have, if you had your full name up on screen,
Sorry, William Doyle.
I keep on thinking to call you Doyle, but I know that's not right. But
Bill Doyle. Bill is
Bill. I will have my conversation. I'll be in touch with Elaine and go from there. And we'll see if we can get something started on this culvert for sure.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right.
All right.
Okay. We have some other people here. Chuck, do we want to go out of order for the sake of anybody else who's here, or, well, somebody just left. I don't know.
Yes, what I would just say, if you're here, so iPhone Jim, if you're here and you want to discuss with the Conservation Commission, just raise your hand using the raise hand function, the reaction button. Otherwise, we should continue with our agenda.
Okay.
And so, not seeing any hands, I'm just going to quickly say old and new business. I said that I was directed to send out an enforcement order to 30 Collins Ave. I did do my own site visit there, and that's where some trees were cut down over the weekend, which was Friday actually. And the trees were cut down. So these people just moved in. They didn't know about our regulations. They seem to be very genuine about that, and they just want to straighten out this problem. But time wasn't enough to have them come to tonight's commission. They wanted to have a plan, have some more knowledge about what they would plant and where they would plant it. So they'll be coming to our next meeting on the 25th. That's what's happening there. And I don't know if there's any questions, but I did send out the enforcement order, but it only says to come to our next meeting on the 25th and then bring a restoration plan for the commission to review. And they know they need to get that to me by end of day next Wednesday.
So Chuck, what about the idea of an enforcement order for the tree company?
Aha, my next question. I was going to ask the commission, which I have found out their address and have prepared an enforcement order, and just asking them, that company, to also attend our next meeting, and so we could start this dialogue. The reason why we like to do that in the past is because one, homeowner touches just their property, but a company touches every property that they work on. And if they bring the knowledge about the wetlands setbacks and regulations into every site that they work on, we can gain a lot of ground. Took a long time, but we worked really well with a couple to three companies here in town that usually have people reach out to us.
Mhm.
So that would be the reason for sending the enforcement order. Of course, it's on our website also that we have the ability to hold the contractors are responsible too for any tree cutting on private property.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. This is a company I had never heard of before, so I think it may be one that also has not interacted with us and may not understand the significance of the need to check the wetland line before cutting trees.
When I talked to the foreman, he said that they've just started doing work in Reading, so part of my thinking was never too early to train the dog.
Okay,
I'll
All
do
right.
that then. Okay.
sounds good.
Do you need you probably need to let me know officially to send that out so you could vote?
Can we have a motion?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to authorize Chuck to send out an enforcement order to GN Brothers Tree Service.
This is Bill McCants. I'll second that motion. Bill McCants in favor?
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Walter Talbot in favor.
Tony
Mark-
Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
So done.
Okay.
Okay. That's old and new business. And so we did Keolis. It's up to you, Martha, but do you see anything on discussion items?
We talked about 10 Plymouth Drive. Brian and I went out and tried to meet the homeowner, failed twice to find the homeowner at home. We are not satisfied that it's completely done with erosion. And so I think we should try to go back out and talk to homeowner again to figure out what's going on before we issue the certificate of compliance.
Okay, so I think it's
Do you have
really
any-
important that you would take the time, or I could take the time to meet the homeowner,
Mhm.
because I think that's what it needs. I think some hands-on discussion with what's going on. So I can try to set something up again, which I'll do.
Okay. Do you have any more to say about the site visit, Brian?
No, that's sufficient for now, especially with time ticking.
Okay. All right. I believe I'm available to go to the DPW meeting on November 7th. We did have a good discussion on October 3rd at our DPW meeting. And a big question that we were asking was, how do we get our Matera cabin property into the calendar for mowing and other sort of maintenance, routine maintenance like that? So we had a discussion about that. And we freed up a little bit of time for the DPW employees because we're going to ask them to mow Bear Meadow less often, as advised by the Audubon consultant who came. Do we have anything else, Brian or Chuck, you wanted to say about that? Okay.
Just
And
still
Brian,
working on it.
okay, Brian and Chuck and I went to the library for New Residents Day and had a good time meeting people and met a few people who clearly will have to come before the commission if they want to do any building in their backyards because they have they're inside the 100-foot zone. So it was a good chance to educate some people. Too bad the 30 Collins didn't come to the new residents thing at the library. Would have prevented this issue.
The big problem with all these events we've done recently, this one, the street fair, Town Force Appreciation Day, we're not reaching many people. So we do have good conversations. It is informative for these individuals. Hopefully they'll remember when the time comes and actually either reach out to Chuck or do some, fill out a form or something. But I think all of us need to scratch our heads and to figure out better ways. I have some ideas. I need to mull on them a bit. But if you have any ideas for how to get the message across to people that they need to check, it's kind of like DigSafe, right? DigSafe did a good job of getting people to look first. That's basically what we're doing, is a work safe for the environment.
Okay. Tony?
I remember, it seems like several months ago, maybe it was longer, we were talking at one point about trying to include a flyer with the recycling information and the leaf compost hours. That seems to be a pretty effective way to reach out to people. Did we meaning Chuck, look down that possible avenue?
Yeah, every time we go down that avenue where DPW says yes, we're a couple months out. I suppose we missed the one. It's the water bill. Missed the recent water bill, but they always direct us to the online. I guess it's Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever else the town has to get the word out. The manager's minute is another thing where we could put that in, and that's what we always hear. So
yeah, we did the manager's minute once. When I talked to Fidel recently, he suggested that again. So I guess it's time for another swing at that, but it's not as if we got a whole lot of feedback from that. So perhaps we need a better writer.
What I think is most effective with the direct mailing is that you reach people that aren't really looking for the information. And I think a lot of people like me keep that schedule posted up on the refrigerator or in the garage. And so you get a frequent reminder.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, we can bring it up again at the next TPW meeting and see what we're put off till.
spring,
Probably.
Yeah, I know all good points, but you have to hit all the buttons. That's what really works. Works the most.
Yeah. Walter, you have your hand up.
Is there any kind of master list of the properties in Reading that are affected by the wetlands?
Yes.
Can
I
you
have it in my email. I got it from Chuck.
Didn't we do that a couple years back? It was
Yeah,
like
I started
$1,000 or something like that.
I started calling it because there's so many duplicates in it. But there was like 8,000 some odd addresses with many, many, many duplicates. So I haven't touched it in a while, but I was nowhere near through culling it.
Is there a two-pronged attack where it would somehow be attached to the titles of the houses? So when you move into the place, when you move into Reading, you have to be made aware that you're wetlands. And then the second thing is there some kind of direct mailing to go out to just those people?
So we actually did. I mean, that's why I was asking for the list of names and addresses in the first place. And part of it was we looked at the cost of mailing that many things out, and it was pretty expensive, especially in a time we didn't have any budget, so we could revisit that thinking.
Mhm. Okay, something for us to think about is how to raise awareness in a more widespread way than just a few people at the table. I'm noticing that November 7th is down as election day on my calendar, and I think that we don't usually have DPW conference meeting on election day. What do you think? That's true, Chuck?
I don't think that's true.
Okay, so
I
you
think that has to do with night meetings.
Ah, okay. All right, so we could still meet with that. All right, Walter?
Can we rewind 1 second? For example, the street fair, whatever. It seems like we're signing up for these things out of order. Shouldn't we get a date set aside, see who's available, and then have that event? Having experience for over 30 years with trade shows, the more people you can put out in front of a booth, virtually talking or stopping to people, the better it is.
So you're aware that we don't pick the dates for these events, right? These are run by different organizations in town.
Of course, but once we know the date, if we're going to volunteer to participate, shouldn't we get people within our group to volunteer first before we agree?
I'd be willing to bet that Martha, Chuck, and I would be delighted if there were more volunteers to stand in front of the table.
Yeah, this, and also, Walter, it's not typical to go to 4 or 5 events every year for a conservation commission. At least I'm not in my experience. Usually Earth Day and whatever Town Day, or whatever we call it here in Reading, are the 2 that I know about. But it seemed to me that Brian really wanted to do these, and so that's why we moved it forward, because Brian said he was available and eager to reach out, and it was very understandable that no one else had time or didn't have enough time to put it on their calendar. So but next year we could try to get a list of all these quicker and get them out to the commission.
Well, I certainly don't want to throw anybody, quote, end of quote, under the bus. But again, most of these things are weekends, and I agree that people have families and want to do things on weekends. But if we're going to put our name out there, shouldn't we have a whole bunch of us to show that, hey, we really exist?
And I will say that also this year we were hurt because 2 out of the 3, there was significant rain, which put a damper on the whole thing. But yeah, I think as soon as we heard about a date for something, if we talk about it and get people to begin, a save the date kind of a thing, that might help. I mean, I also recognize that people do have a life, and just because I don't, that's my fault.
And Walter, I agree that it's nice to have a lot of people there, but I think also, if we have 2 or maybe 3 people at the table at any one time, that's really enough. And the advantage of having more people available is that maybe we don't have to be there the whole shift. We can split and have somebody go in the morning and somebody go in the afternoon. But I don't think, given the size of the booth and the size of the table, it makes sense to try to insist that the entire commission is all there the whole time.
I should note also, it wouldn't help to have too many people, because it's hard to get a word in edgewise with Martha as it is.
Yep, I'm a attention hog. I apologize. Okay, I think we really have finished that topic, and we have minutes to vote on, and I don't know that there's anything else on our agenda. So Bill.
Just very quickly, Chuck, I was hoping you could pass along a thank you to Andrew McNichol. He's just incredibly busy, and I thought he did a wonderful job in answering that question about jurisdiction. I found it extremely helpful anyway. And, I just don't want to think other parts of town that we're taking them for granted. Just a terrific job. So please do pass that along. Thank you.
Sure thing.
And actually, I noticed when I was reading the September 27th meeting minutes, we had talked about having Bill make a red line version of the regulation changes and then pass that on to us. And I saw from Chuck that he has passed that on to the town legal counsel, but have we seen a copy of the red line version yet?
Was that supposed to happen after I sent it out to town council?
I got the impression we were going to get it at the same time as town council. Are you going to wait for town council to reply and then give us the red line?
I'll send it out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so I must have just forgotten that step. I was really, to be honest with you, I was more interested in just getting it to town council, and I forgot everything else.
Okay.
So
Great.
and so that has happened, and I mean, we weren't looking for comments from the commission. It was just for your own edification. So
Right. And the October 28th, the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions fall meeting is happening. And I noticed that on the schedule, there is in fact a workshop on revising your wetland regulations, which I am hoping to be able to go to. But anybody else who's interested in attending that conference should be aware that it's happening. And it's October 28th, Saturday. It's happening out at Devon. Used to be called Fort Devon, I guess. Devon's, okay. And Chuck and I are going to be there and presenting about the Millette Psalms Morgan project, along with Jen from Horsley Witten.
yeah, Jen Relstab from Horsley Witten. She's an engineer.
And the students from the high school environmental club who presented it at their Envirothon competition last spring have been invited to come and talk about their publicizing it to the general public at Friends and Family Day last spring. So it's kind of fun to have them get recognized for that.
Cool.
And Martha, just to let you know, I will be attending, but I'm looking at my schedule for that day, and I am going to that bylaws, albeit the bylaws thing. I'm also going to see you and Chuck, of course, because so.
Well, you already know what we did. Maybe there's something else you want to see.
We're going to present to Bill. Oh, good. It's going to be Bill and those 6 or 7 kids in the audience.
I want to point out, you already have the job. You don't have to be nice.
All right.
Okay.
Is it Chicago winning? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. So
Come on, man.
minutes from September 27th. Can we approve those minutes?
I've got 4 suggested revisions.
Okay.
And sorry, I didn't send these in earlier. I got to it kind of late. On page 1, under dog park presentation, sentence 4, it's the second to last sentence. It says the commission asked a variety of questions. Very few had conservation in mind. Can we strike the last 6 words and just leave it as the commission asked a variety of questions? Full stop.
Thank you, Tony. I thought that was a very odd statement, so thank you.
It was kind
a little embarrassing.
I actually read it and I agreed with her, but okay.
Yeah,
that's kind of funny.
I don't disagree.
But we don't need to put it in writing.
That's right.
Okay.
Then on page 2, under item number 4, 451 Pearl Street, toward the end of that paragraph, it's like the 5th line of the end. It starts out, Mr. Rotalakis recommended that the red maples being planted not be a hybrid red maple. Instead of and, replace it with but rather.
Okay.
I should have asked, what did we end up with? Are we
True natives.
true
Yep,
natives?
true
Okay.
natives.
I
Yeah,
assumed as much, but
Yeah, there's a nursery out around 495 built that has red maples in stock, native red maples in stock. And number 11, I haven't taken the course. I've only signed up for it.
Okay.
This is the fundamentals course.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. You had 4?
Oh, and in number 8, I wanted to include a discussion that we had in the vernal pool discussion where we did talk a little bit about potential burdens for homeowners. I'd like to get that recognized in the minutes. Perhaps in the middle, there's a sentence, the commission had an in-depth conversation about adding specific verbiage for capturing a 24-month consecutive breeding periods to help determine clarity in potential vernal pools, comma, and discussed potential burdens to homeowners.
Okay.
Bill.
Just one word in number 4. Straw wattle with 2 D's. That's something a duck might do.
I
Let's
got
go with
that.
2. Let's go with 2 T's. Thank you.
Straw wattle.
Mm-hmm.
That was sent in by someone else, but thank you.
And there was some conversation about how Stephen Cool spells his last name, but I do believe it is Cool.
I thought I saw it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's easy to find out. That's
Yeah,
I have his
thought it
email,
was
so
Can you
I looked him up in the telephone book.
Fair enough.
Okay. But yeah, Chuck can check his
You have a
email.
telephone book?
Yeah, it's from 2002, but it had Stephen Cool in it.
That's cool.
What's a
you're
telephone?
being serious.
Did you do that
what's
on
that?
your dial phone?
I did not dial him on my rotary phone. No, I just had the phone book at
Okay.
the desk
So
where
moving
I
right
was
along.
reading the minutes.
Moving right along.
Okay. Are we ready to adjourn?
We have to just vote to approve the minutes.
Oh, right. How about move? Anybody willing to move?
What's the date on that one again? September 27th.
9/27.
This is Brian. I make a motion to approve the minutes for 9/27 as amended.
This is Tony Rotalakis. I second that.
Bill McCann in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Rowe in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Walter Talbot in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. That's unanimous. Okay. Now can we have a motion to adjourn?
Brian will make a motion to adjourn at 9:24.
Okay.
Second
All
that.
in favor?
Yes.
All right.
All right. Bye,
Right.
everyone. Have a good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.